give me floating sound. Let me touch a few scriptures. The theme of our conference is Ascend. Too many people are on ground. That's their problem. When you are on ground, even things that should not be battles becomes battles. When I was coming here this evening, getting to the airport was surrounded with a very thick forest. There were hills, there were mountains. We had only one tiny road that led into that place. And if there's a hold up there, you can miss your flight. Because only one tiny road led into that airport. Everywhere was surrounded with forest, surrounded with mountains. And so you couldn't access the airport from any other means. And so sometimes there is a very long hold up and we are all choked and stopped. But you see, the plane does not have hold up. When it takes off, the forest counts for nothing. The mountain counts for nothing. It is those of us who are driving on ground that the forest and the mountain is a challenge. When the plane ascends, it takes any direction. No mountain can stop it. No forest can stop it. Because when you are on ground, your battles are too many. As you ascend in this conference, most of the things you call battles will vanish. There is a level where you need to uproot the mountain. There's another level where the existence of the mountain counts for nothing. If you are driving, you may need to uproot the mountain. You may need to uproot the trees. But when you fly, the mountain can remain there. You go above it. The forest can remain there. You go above it. Somebody will go above in life in this conference. And so this conference is designed to make you go above. To live above and to stay up there. Where you dominate and where you conquer. And so tonight, I will share with you briefly the requirements for the ascended life. And I will also share with you few benefits of the ascended realm. And then tomorrow, we will go into deeper matters on how to wield the powers of that realm. But because it's my first session, I will begin by explaining a few things. Just to give you requirements so you will know. Because nothing in God is luck. Nothing in God happens by chance. Everything in God is deliberate. And if you know how it works, you can replicate it any day, anytime, anywhere. That's the beauty of working with God. It's not a fluke. It can be repeated. It can be replicated in any location at all. Because the power that sponsors it cannot be defied. And so tonight, my simple assignment is to show you what it takes to live above. And then the blessedness of living above. If I succeed in doing that tonight, we will celebrate God, trust Him for His power, and then we'll come back tomorrow and take it up from there. What does it mean to be ascended? To be ascended simply means to be brought to the place of authority. When we are talking about ascension, the one word that summarizes it is authority. Everything about height has to do with authority. The Bible speaking in Ephesians chapter 1 from verse 19 to 20, when it gave us an example of what ascension meant. He said, and what is the exceeding greatness of His power to usward who believe, according to the working of His mighty power. And then he went to verse 20. He said that power was demonstrated in Christ when He rose Him from the dead. Because the dead is beneath, is the realm below. So he said that exceeding great power was demonstrated when Christ was raised from the dead and when He was set at the right hand in heavenly places. And in verse 21, he said, far above principalities and powers. Far above principalities and powers, above every name that is named, not only in this world, but also in the world that is to come. And so when we are talking about ascension, when we are talking about height, we are talking about a dimension of authority that gives you an advantage over every affair of life. It can translate to wisdom. It can translate to speed. It can translate to productivity. But every expression of that operation keeps you in charge and gives you an advantage. And when a man is in charge, he begins to enjoy the fullness of life. In fact, the way this life works is such that you cannot maximize it until you have authority. There are many persons who have dreams that were never fulfilled because they never had authority. Either authority against devils, or financial authority to sponsor it, or authority to be able to communicate it in a way that it will convince humanity. And so every time you see men making progress in life unprecedented, it means there is a dimension of authority that is at work in their lives. And so when we are talking about ascension, we are talking about the culmination of authority that gives you an advantage in your existence. This is why you must have to pay attention. Because if your visions will be fulfilled, then you need height. If your goals will be accomplished, then you need height. If you will impact your generation, then you need height. Because there is nothing you do in this realm without authority being included that it will be impactful. In fact, when Jesus was done with his disciples, he told them, I know you have been to Bible school with me. You saw me manifest miracles. You saw me manifest wonders. He said, but tarry in Jerusalem until you are endued with power from on high. Luke 24:49. Because if you go out with a good message, you will die. If you go out with a good message, you cannot affect your generation. You need authority conferred upon you. And so there are things you do in this kingdom that brings you into authority. So when we are talking about height, we are not just talking upward movement only. Upward movement is a physical or geographical expression of what height means. But in reality, height is actually a position of advantage. Height is actually a position of authority. Height is actually a position of power. And many of us will need a lot of height to fulfill the magnitude of destiny and vision the Lord has given to us. However, height is not a gift. Height is attained deliberately. Height is attained by putting effort, putting deliberate intention. It is a mileage you cover because you are doing something. And so in Psalm 24 from verse 3, the Bible began to give us, for instance, some of the credentials of men who are able to ascend height. It says, who shall ascend the hills of the Lord? It says, who shall stand in his holy place? It's not a gift. It's open to everybody, but the one who can get there. He said, there are credentials. It says, he that is of a clean hands, him that is of a pure heart, him that have not lifted up his soul in vanity, nor sworn deceitfully. So you see that although height is a possibility for everyone, but only those who meet the requirement will ascend. And so the first thing you see from this scripture is that the place of height is called the hills of the Lord. That means that's where the government of God dwells. That's why I told you height is about authority. In fact, if you read this same illustration in Hebrews chapter 12 from verse 22 to 23, you are going to see that it is on Mount Zion that God is introduced as the judge of all. Because when you are dealing with height, you are dealing with authority. And for you to attain height, there are credentials. Now, if you go to verse 25 of this same psalm that we have read, you are going to see that the moment the credentials are met, the next thing is blessings. Psalm 24 verse 25. Look at what the Bible said. The moment you're able to ascend authority, it said the next thing is blessing. Psalm 24 verse 25. I want you to see these scriptures. If you will, write them down. Go home, meditate on it. Because in the next 20 years, if you remain at the bottom, you will suffer. And if you suffer, it will not be anybody's fault. It will be your fault. So I'm telling you two things now. Number one, whether the next 20 years of your life will count or not is your choice to make in this conference. And number two, don't plan to blame anybody. Because if you fail and if you are suffering, you are the one to blame. He said in Psalm 24, verse 5, I beg your pardon. He said, he shall receive the blessings from the Lord and righteousness from the God of his salvation. So in verse 23, it said, who shall ascend the hill of the Lord? That means anybody can. In verse 4, it said, him that is of a pure hands, clean hands, pure heart, who has not lifted his soul in vanity or sworn deceitfully, gave you credentials. And in verse 5, it said, he shall receive the blessings of the Lord. So these are three cadres of life that brings fulfillment to existence. And so tonight, one thing we are going to look at, having established that a place of height or a place of ascension is a place of authority, we are going to see the biblical requirements for those who ascend in life. Because not everybody ascends. At the end of your journey, you are going to discover that some persons are left at the foot of the mountain. Ask our fathers today, they will tell you, when they were young, all of them had dreams. Go to primary school and take a sample. Some will tell you they want to be presidents. Some will tell you they want to be governors. Some will tell you they want to be pilots. Some will tell you they want to be wealthy. Every child has a dream. But at the end of the day, when they are 60, 70, 80, you will discover that in a whole generation, you can count them. Sometimes a handful make it to the top because it's not a gift. It's open to everybody, but very few are willing to pay the price. And so I will show you what it takes to ascend tonight, and the choice will now be yours to make. Whether your life will be impactful, whether your life will count or not. And then if your life does not count, also know from this meeting that you are the only person to blame for what your life turns out to be. So, what does it take to ascend? Tomorrow I will show you the dimensions of height in the spirit. There's a height you attain that you have authority in the realm of spirit. That's the dimension of height. And trust me, if you will impact the natural, you would have impacted the spirit. Nobody impacting the natural is a novice in the realm of the spirit. It takes spiritual advantage to dominate the natural realm. And so when we are talking about height, there is a spiritual dimension to height and there is a natural dimension to height. And in the spiritual dimension, there are two operations of height. One is your ability to come to God's realm. It's your ability to operate from God's realm. It's your ability to stand in God's realm. And that's why Psalm 24, verse 3 that we read, it says, who shall ascend to the hills of the Lord? So he's telling you that one of the places in height is in the realm of God. Who shall stand in his holy mountains? Because those who ascend heights, they come to the realm of God. In fact, if you study Psalm 65, I think verse 28, it said, blessed is the man that the Lord causes to approach him. So in height operations, there is a place where you come to the realm of God and you are living from there. So the wisdom you are dispensing is not your wisdom. You are tapping it from God. The courage you have, you are drawing it from God. The resilience, you are drawing from God. The inspiration, you are drawing because you participate in that realm. You have traveled that far to draw from that realm. And then also talking about spirit realm, in the corridor of height, there is a place you get to where you can command spirits. Because you will discover that apart from drawing from God to dominate your world, there are other spirits that try to negate your vision. The job of those spirits is to make sure you don't succeed. In Zechariah chapter 1 verse 18 and 19, it says, I beheld and I saw 4 horns. And he said, what have those horns come to do? He said, these are the horns that scatter Jerusalem and Judah so that nobody lift up his head. So there are other spirits that are there to clamp people down so that they don't go anywhere. So when a man has height, number one, he's drawing from God's realm. And number two, he has authority to stop the spirits that stop men. He said